before, but all of a sudden there's 8 inches of snow there. Yeah. Well, they're talking rainbow.
Oh, 6 inches.
It's like because nobody knows that. Really 8 to 10 inches. Then I usually send it 3 to 4. We hire you guys. Yeah, everyone on the experts go and we plow. It's like we were something. So we start plowing whiz on that. And 6 inches still is done. So we're all sitting there twiddling our thumbs out. We do. Myself, about 3 hours on Friday. I was like, all right, I gotta get this damn thing figured out.
Yeah, that's a lot. You know, like a sausage.
Whatever it is. I spent the whole meal.
All right, it is 7:30. We have a quorum. I will call the meeting to order. First item is a pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In addition, on your agenda, we have several items that were inadvertently left off. First, we're going to have a presentation by the Soil and Water Board. Dylan Hayes, Environmental Service Staff for Mille Lacs County, and Susan Shaw, District Administrator, Mille Lacs Soil and Water. At the end of old business, we will have a sheriff's report, road report, and aware. And at the end of new business, we will have an employee review. So those got left off the agenda.
One other thing we might want to add is the annual meeting location, authorization, publications.
Change location.
We'll at least have the opportunity to see that overflow it.
Last year was a full house.
Like the last 2 years, it's been a full house.
Middle school, it's within the 5 mile area, and I've been in contact with them.
I just wanted to add that to the bottom of the new business as another item.
Okay, next item is a December 17th meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review them? Are there any additions, corrections, deletions? If not, I'm going to entertain a motion to accept.
Is it possible from here on out, at the end of the meeting, that we could put a timestamp on when the meeting was adjourned? That's all I was.
Yeah, that would be anything else? You don't need the whole time meeting.
It's late.
All right, we will just move forward.
Yeah.
Future. Is there any other additions, corrections, deletions to the regular monthly meeting of December 17th? Entertain a motion to accept.
I make a motion to accept the meeting minutes as.
Second. Motion's been made and second. Any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion's carried. Next item of business is people let them do their presentation so they can stay or go if they wish. And Susan Shaw is our district administrator of Soil and Water.
Would you like us to
stand by your podium here.
Yes.
Thank you for giving us some time on your agenda tonight. My name is Susan Shaw, and I'm with the Mille Lacs Soil and Water Conservation District.
I'm Dylan Hayes with Mille Lacs County Environmental Resources.
And we had met with Eugene Stokel a few weeks back and talked about the Wetland Conservation Act. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to kind of give you, introduce you to a few of the things we discussed with him, answer any questions, informal questions you might have, and then of course can follow that up with any additional questions you could have. The Wetland Conservation Act has been around since 1991, so it's not a new wetland protection law. But our experience has been that there is an enormous amount of confusion, misunderstanding, frustration about what that rule actually allows or doesn't allow. And of particular concern to us is that townships get their questions answered so that you are able to follow that Conservation Act and law and not end up on the wrong side of it, because that just causes stress and grief and expense that's unnecessary. So, a couple of things that we have prepared here, and don't have a ton of copies, you probably don't want a ton of copies. This is a very old, vintage, let's say vintage. We've had it around for probably 20 years, so that makes it a collector's item, right? It's a good postcard. Like I said, it was put together a long time ago. Teeny-weeny pictures, tiny-whiny text, maybe not the most helpful thing in the world. Some for the audience who kind of would like to see some pictures. The wetlands in Minnesota are, within that conservation law, are sorted out by types. Believe it or not, there's, how many types? 8 different types of wetlands, which range from the more obvious ones that anybody would probably recognize with open water and cattails and probably a duck bobbing along in it, to the ones that really hang people up and nobody that has a kind of a regular job wouldn't be expected to necessarily recognize and wouldn't. The seasonal wetlands, ones that are wet within a foot below the surface, and maybe even just a couple weeks during the growing season each year. So that seasonally flooded stuff, which is a lot of Mille Lacs County, and represents actually a lot of crop fields. And that, I think, is one of the trickiest things for folks when you're in a role like a township has, managing roads, where these various types of wetlands can come up against your right-of-way, and they're in the right-of-way and up against the road. Can really be problematic when you're trying to do what you're responsible to do, is maintain those roads for safety and use. Not your responsibility to necessarily be able to identify which type of wetland it is, but it's really important that you know that if it is a wetland, the rule does apply to townships and road authorities, county road authorities, state road authorities, the same as it does to me as a landowner or any other homeowner in this room. So it's one law, applies to everybody. Different restrictions or allowances for the different types of wetlands. The overall purpose of the law when they created it in '91 was simply that we'd already lost a lot of wetlands in Minnesota for a lot of different reasons, particularly out south and west. They've been drained already. And the state of Minnesota said, overall, we need our wetlands. They do a lot to recharge our groundwater. They're good for other things like wildlife. And so they placed this law across the whole of Minnesota, one size fits all. Purpose is no more net loss for the entire state. So parts of the state that have already had a lot of work done, wetlands are drained or ditched or removed or smaller. They go on and have a little bit easy time fitting between houses, homes, and roads. A place like Mille Lacs County, whether you see it's an advantage or a disadvantage, actually has greater than 80% of its original wetlands, pre-settlement wetlands. And as everybody knows, that can be a little bit trickier to move sometimes when you've got a law that prohibits or at least restricts draining, filling of wetlands. So, little pictures for just kind of an idea of the variety of types. And then I'll let Dylan introduce this little fact sheet that he put together that kind of highlights some township stuff.
Sure. So within that Wetland Conservation Act, there is sort of an abbreviated process for the road authorities. And obviously, as a township, you are a road authority. So we try to do with this fact sheet is just give you a brief explanation of the steps that you need to take to make sure you're complying with that Wetland Conservation Act when you are doing road projects. The long and short of it is anytime you're impacting a wetland, there needs to be a replacement for those impacts. The nice thing about that for road authorities is that the state will take care of that for you. You just need to come in and do paperwork. We are definitely more than willing to assist you with that paperwork, but we don't know when you're working on your roads. So it kind of puts the onus on you as a road authority to make sure that you're staying informed, making sure that you are getting that paperwork in when it needs to be in and going through that process. The ramification, if you don't, is that you're now on the hook for that replacement. And when the state is willing to pay for it up front, we just really don't want to see you spend that money if you don't want to. So basically, the fact sheet just kind of spells it out. There are some exemptions. For instance, if you have a road washout, you have an emergency, something like that, you can do some of that work beforehand and come back and fill out the paperwork later if it is going to be an emergency. So it is a
30-day window.
Yep, a 30-day window that needs to be within 30 days of doing the work. It's also limited to repairs that impact wetlands of 10,000 square feet or less. So if you have an entire road washout, you're going to have maybe an acre of wetland impacts. That's still something that needs to come in before the work is done. For most of those minor repairs or emergency repairs, you can do that process within 30 days of the workers. We can pass these.
And we looked specifically at 82nd and 33rd, and also at 50th. And 82nd and 33rd were good to go, if I remember the map.
Yep.
30th or 50th, we may have a few small issues where we have to get it cleared with the state before we resurface it.
So what is the replacement ratio?
So the replacement ratio here in Mille Lacs County is typically 1:1. Because we do have so many of our pre-settlement wetlands remaining, we're able to get away with that 1:1 ratio.
Is that ratio within the township or within the county?
Within the entire county. If you were down even Sherburne County or anywhere south or west of us, they are replacing at a higher ratio, a lot of times at a 2:1. So that is one nice thing about having a lot of our pre-settlement wetlands left is that we do get able to have a replacement ratio. And that holds true for road authorities, the same as it does for if the landowner had to replace, they'd also be at that 1:1 ratio.
And is most of this outside the road bed or within the road bed? Within 50th, you mentioned we have some road bed or something in those areas that are going to need to be repaired.
Yeah.
Within the road bed.
Yeah, so if it's within the road bed, that's fine. That's already been impacted and do what you need to do there.
It's unlikely that the road bed itself would probably
Right.
qualify, but those shoulders.
Yeah, typically where we're seeing the wetland impacts on road projects is if you're doing a new road, if you're widening shoulders, you're widening the road itself. That's usually when this process comes in.
For this area, basically.
Essentially, yep. So we've seen a lot of these for the county recently. They're upgrading a lot of roads, going to paved roads, through the bus roads, project and paved roads. So we're seeing wetland replacement a lot of those as they go from 11-foot lanes to 12-foot lanes and a 6 or 8-foot shoulder. That's what we're seeing.
For some of the other townships that have roads that still don't have, what should we say, modern shoulders?
That's a good way of putting it, yeah.
You know the ones I'm talking about where the grass stops and then you pull off. Those, as they are able to put shoulders in, is a stark transition. So you've got the road bed and then just to build the shoulder, they are frequently working with in what would count as a wetland and then need to replace for those impacts. That is the landowner statement and contractor responsibility form. So that we're hoping could be a helpful tool for the township in particular. Let's see, comes out of the shoreline rule, is that what you said?
DNR rules, yep, in general, that relate to water, so it applies not only to wetlands, but to public waters, rivers, streams, lakes, and that kind of thing as well.
What it is, and we've not in the past talked much with townships about this, so this is kind of a brand new informational push, trying to get folks to use this form, which has existed again in the law. It's not a new form. But a lot of people are going to be unfamiliar with it. So I don't want you to misunderstand people's, or even contractors' unfamiliarity with it and think, well, this is a new form. It's not. It's called a landowner statement contract responsibility form. The way it's meant to function or work is that when a project is happening, that you, the township, would be considered the landowner in this case. And so you would fill out your portion of it, that you've got a project, you've checked on it, you're aware of whether or not there's going to be wetland impacts, and then you're going to provide it to the contractor that you would be working with on that project. And then there's a portion of the form that the contractor would verify that they're aware of the project, wetland impacts, and their responsibility in that. Because when you're working in a wetland, and we're assuming that you've got all your checks and you know that you can impact that wetland in a particular way it's been replaced. The responsibility is both on the landowner, or you, the township, being responsible for a road project, and the contractor. That applies both to townships and homeowners. So we're also going to be encouraging and hoping to increase the awareness for homeowners and contractors. All the contractors in the community that might end up working in a wetland, they're responsible to use this form as well. And they would provide it to the landowner that they're working with. And the intent of this, and catch me if I go off base on this, but the intent then is this: you fill this form out and then you provide it to Dylan. That is kind of a check. Dylan sees the form, you've notified him that you're doing a project, and it's a way kind of to close the loop. How's the DNR going to handle this? Because essentially it comes out of their offices, right?
Right, yep, so this is a little different than the Wetland Conservation Act itself. The Wetland Conservation Act is enforced locally. The county enforces that here. These are enforced, or these standards are enforced by the DNR. So when someone fails to submit that, or there's an issue, something like that, it's the DNR who does enforcement. And the DNR is maybe a little less forgiving than the county is when it comes to some of this stuff. So that's really why we're trying to make this push now to make everyone aware of it. Again, we just are trying to save folks from those headaches down the road when the DNR finds out it wasn't submitted, or if there's an issue, something like that.
So by using the form, you avoid any risk of applying, but I think there's a way out in front of that, a greater advantage. It's just another way to let people know that there is a rule and they might need to do something. And I think it was in conversation with Jean that you had thought it might be worth considering as a township does permitting for driveways. Is that what you said you did? And it's just an idea. There's no responsibility that you have to do for that. But I know just with all the confusion about what the wetland rules are and what you can and can't do, one of the things we end up working with are confused landowners that after they've gone through certain processes to get certain appropriate permits to put in a driveway, for example, they'll end up finding out that that driveway is being installed within a wetland. And then we meet on comfortable terms. So a hope I have is that if a township were using this form and maybe it was included in some other paperwork that you're providing landowners when they're going through all the steps to get those, new home, new driveway, new access, whatever they're doing, they would come across this form, probably not initially understand what it's for, but in the process of understanding that, they would end up submitting it to Dylan, and we would get all those confusions and answers hammered out, ideally well in advance of them wanting to install the driveway. Because once the project gets going, everybody's on timelines, they've scheduled a contractor, That is the last time that everybody wants to find out that there's a wetland in the way. So hopefully the earliest we can get this kind of form, this kind of information, spreading the awareness out there that this is a step that needs to be taken is going to solve grief for people. And I really do believe, I consistently, in talking with people who have ended up on the wrong side of the wetland law, there is more confusion and more misinformation out there about what you can and can't do in the wetland than there is correct information. And so it's not working really well right now, the word of mouth about, well, so-and-so did this, wasn't the problem. They're getting the wrong information that way. And the trick is how to get in front of people so that their life doesn't become miserable when they meet me.
Would it be logical to put one of these in every building permit application?
That is entirely up to you. My goal is to talk to more people well in advance of them doing anything. Because then it's easy. Then we do a quick review like you did. Pop open an aerial photo, take a look at a map, and it's either, I don't see any problem here, or let's drive out there and just take a quick look, and here's what we need to do. Way in advance of dirt landing in a spot. Super easy.
Any questions?
That form available on the website.
Yep, it's on the Mille Lacs County website, and also I believe the DNR and the Board of Water and Soil Resources websites as well.
That's really, we just wanted to kind of introduce it to you and be available for questions and answers, and really hope that your township feels comfortable just calling us for any and everything until you get real comfortable with what the steps are. And
I think it would be a big help if we had a 4-foot by 4-foot map of Princeton Township showing the wetlands. So then when a person come in for a driveway, they could see, well, this is not a problem, or ooh, that may be a problem. But if it was on a wall map, most of us deal pretty good with pictures. I think that would be a great help down here.
do you know if the wetlands layer shows up on the county's mapping GIS?
Not when you initially pull it up. I think you have to go to it and turn it on.
So it is theoretically then available on that county's GIS mapping site. Have you been to that one?
Yes,
On
I
their
have. The
website?
only thing is you're looking at a screen
Yeah.
this big,
Yeah.
Right.
and you're talking about a driveway, and
Yes.
that's like a ink dot.
Yeah,
You know.
and Dylan's also mentioning that even though it's out there, you have to dig around to turn the layer on, so that's not super helpful. One of the problems, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think even with a 4 by 4 foot map, the wetlands are still so small and detailed, it still would probably be a little bit problematic, and I'd be worried too, because that wetland map, we call it the NWI, the National Wetland Inventory, and that NWI was done nationally. They had information like topographical lines, which until recently now is at least at a 2-foot contour.
Yep.
But just because of that, it's kind of a general overview. I used to say the old NWI map missed about 50% of the wetlands that are actually in Mille Lacs County on that map, and I don't know how accurate this one is, but it's far from
So
perfect.
if you use that map,
Well, we go on site.
okay,
Yeah, we use the map as to get an idea, and then we have to look at soils, hydrology of water, and the vegetation.
if your
So,
socks get wet, that's.
Yeah. Yeah. So if that's of interest to your township, that I'm sure it could be done. My concern would be it might add to the misinformation a little bit too. If somebody looks at and interprets it to mean there's no wetland there, I'm good.
But in a way, it's a reminder that, oh yeah, don't forget the wetlands.
So something to consider, and you can let us know if you think there are any tools that would be helpful. But the easiest way I think we can offer a certain answer is just for someone to give us a call And the darn thing about that wetland law, it really, really, really is, everybody know the old adage, it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission. Really doesn't apply to this law. It is so expensive. People put money into what they're doing, and then the wetland law requires them to pull it back out. So you got the cost going in and the cost going out. So I don't recommend that particular adage for this particular law. So we'll get out of your hair unless you got any questions, and
Any
it's
other
not hard to
questions?
find.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item of business is to review and approve fire protection contract that was presented last month.
It was brought forward last month, but we haven't, I don't think we've looked at it completely. I'd make a motion that we move it to next month. And I spoke with, yeah, no, it's not, yeah.
Okay. Motion's been made to table it to next month.
I'll second that motion.
Motion's made and seconded to table fire protection contract to next month. Any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion's carried. Approve additional election judges. We had the original list of 6. We'd like to add 3 more because we have 4 elections this year. We're trying, we wish to add Joel Minks, Jackie Minks, and Shirley Miller. I have a motion to that effect.
I would move that motion.
Motion's been made
I'll second it.
and seconded to approve additional election judges, Joel Minks, Jackie Minks, and Shirley Miller. Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion's carried. Sheriff's report. Does anybody do you have
Any issues for us?
what's that?
Any issues for us that you can think of?
Not tonight, apparently.
Never anything for you guys then.
Tony usually prints something off, I know, but Tony's not here tonight, so,
I think he's fishing, so.
yeah.
Okay.
We didn't have time to print anything off, so we apologize.
Thank you. We will move on to the road report. And you have,
Yes, I have a few, I had some problems with my computers this last 2 weeks, so I'm kind of running on, I hope this works type thing. Yeah, up underneath there's a button. Yep, toward this way a little more, I think. Yeah, there you go. You have to hold it down a little bit.
there's done.
Okay, all right. Well, while that's loading up, I just had a couple things to finish up from last month. One, I made mention about the signs in Mille Lacs County. I had talked to them about the signing in the township. We had a map that showed 295 signs, and I hope this connects. And it sounds as though not all the signs on the map are the township's responsibility, so we do have a 3-ring binder. That 3-ring binder is correct. It shows that we only have 165 that we are that we're responsible for. What else do I have on that? Yeah, this isn't my laptop because the projector wasn't working with mine, so I asked Jerry Sands if I could borrow his laptop. So he's gonna get us rolling here. I'll probably need the light source for a second, that's okay. What was the other thing I was gonna mention? This is actually kind of a decision for the board. I'd like to kind of start moving forward with getting the brush cutter installed on the big tractors so that we can start getting some of the brush between now and spring. Is there a, I don't know who we're gonna, something we're gonna do, or I can do with Kenny, or just to get it ready.
Mounted, have you ever worked on mounting brush cutters? Kenny,
I haven't, but it doesn't look that difficult to set up. It's
it's a 3-point hitch and
yeah,
3 points.
yeah.
Hydraulics.
So I really goes through the thing. Yeah, it's something we should be doing.
Okay. So do we need to make a motion to, I mean, that's just part of our normal.
Just ask Kenny.
As far as in the brush, I
Want to get it ready to go.
don't think we need to.
Oh, all right.
I wouldn't think that is
Okay. So while this is loading up, the other information I had too from the county, or the township engineer, he's got the proposal ready. You're going to play.
You guys can look. Probably pick this guy.
So he sent us the bid setup form, the bid and the project specification plans. So that's going out to bid. I think we had set it up last month, so all that information is in last month's meeting minutes. So if there was somebody that you wanted to contact about Minnesota, whoever's doing the airport, just kind of let them know that it's out there. So they can put a bid if they'd like to.
Yeah, last month, for anybody that wasn't here, we decided to send out bids broken down into quite a few different segments so we could pick and choose the subsurfacing, the asphalting, on more different segments of 33rd and 82nd. And we're proceeding to, it still is not obligating anybody to move forward, but it is a step that we're hoping to take, and we're planning to at least, and I believe the school district and the city of Sort has jumped on board. So I think we are planning on moving forward with some of the 33rd and 82nd. So everybody knows what we're talking about.
Right. Well, we have to reboot this, so we can, is it okay if we go into the county administrator's report? Okay, I'll do that. We got the American too.
Right, okay, the AWARE project, we have spent some time, Mr. Henson has spent lots of time on getting us an overall action plan. Last night we sat down and went through 18 pages, I believe it is, 18, and I think we came up with 17 items that we need to bring attention to. Some of them are just as simple as getting an emergency phone number for county, if we should have a county, a spill or a chemical accident or anything. OSHA posters, they're not going to cost us anything. But we have a first aid kit that probably has, well, it's probably older than me. Fire alarms need to be installed. Hard hats should be available. Covered waste cans for flammables should be available. Some of those aren't going to cost us very much. But we need a ladder that would get us onto the roof, and it has to be at least 3 feet over the top of the roof when you're putting it up by OSHA law. We'd also need a 6-foot for in here and a 10-foot for like in the shop. Jack stands that would support the tractor. So probably 20-ton jack stands. Fireproof cabinet, lockout tagout kits that we've never had, MSD files, and that's not going to cost us anything. It's just a matter of getting them. Safety tape for protecting us away from junction boxes fuse boxes, or breaker boxes, whatever. I think Mr. Henson has done a tremendous amount of safety training, so I think we can say we've signed off on that, but we should all probably, as a board, probably go through some minor safety training and then 5 and 1 gallon safety fuel containers. And something as simple as no smoking signs inside and outside, and no exit signs for closed doors, front door. So if there were a fire, somebody were running for the door, obviously, that's an exit door. That's an exit door, but if they were to turn into the storage area back there, it could be an issue. So we have a whole bunch of things that we have to deal with to get ourselves an A-ware compliance, and we're definitely moving forward. It's going to cost a little bit of money. Any questions?
How has it been signed off?
In the past, we trusted certain people to do it thoroughly, and apparently it was done from a desk.
Isn't there grant money available from OSHA for some of that stuff? You know, they collect fines when you don't do it. But I mean, I think the county used to get some grant money for safety equipment.
I think we want to do some of the introductory stuff to begin with, and then we'll probably get an OSHA courtesy inspection. But I think we want to at least hit some of the really easy stuff first.
Yeah, because you don't want to get a fine.
No.
Well, you don't get a fine from us.
If they come in on a non-courtesy inspection, we will have a fine. There's a guarantee.
Yes.
Any comments about it?
We didn't own any ladders?
No. No, Mr. Henson has been kind enough to use a whole lot of his property to maintain this place. Now, you ready?
I am. Yeah.
I'm not sure if we get overheated or shut off. Yeah, you're on grab lights. Everything's got it.
So this is going to be a little bit of interaction on your part. Toward the end, I'm going to be asking kind of yes and no questions. It's not a test, but it's just, bear with me here. So my goal tonight is to help improve understanding of how the budget has been utilized during the past 5 years or so, and particularly the road and bridge portion of the budget. My focus will be mostly on gravel and road repair sub-accounts for the township. One of the things I think is important to understand is that the truth in taxation per Minnesota legislation and how it relates to our budget. So we're going to review this on the next few slides. I'm sorry, this is the first one. Truth in taxation is a process first enacted by the legislature in 1988 to enhance public participation in Minnesota's property tax system. The T&T process consists of these 3 components. Each local government is required to formally adopt the proposed levy in September. And I'll stop here. So a big reason I'm bringing this forward now is because we got the annual meeting coming up in a few months, and we're hoping that people understand kind of what the truth in taxation and kind of where we come from and where we're going. So with that, I'll just continue here. The second bullet, county auditors generate parcel-specific notices for proposed taxes of all parcels of property based on the proposed levies. Each local government is required to hold a public meeting after the notice has come out where budget and tax issues are discussed and where public testimony must be allowed prior to adopting this final levy. Final levies may exceed proposed levies in the case of levies approved by voters in referendum elections. The rationale for the program, prior to the T&T, the only involvement most taxpayers had with the property tax system was the valuation side of the equation. Taxpayers received a market value notice in the spring of the year prior to the tax year, but nothing about how the valuation would actually relate to property taxes. Taxpayers could choose to become involved in the tax budgeting decisions by attending meetings of county commissioners, city councils, and school boards but few did. And so this is the portion here that I wanted to highlight. Truth in Taxation was enacted with the goal of improving accountability by focusing taxpayers on the relationship between budget decisions and property taxes, and providing taxpayers with a greater opportunity to become involved in local government and budgeting processes. So the levy provides tax dollars to the township, and that money is then used to provide for providing and paying for services for the township per statutory obligations. And I've mentioned those in the past, but a big obligation is the roads. I don't want to spend my time explaining this, but I can't in good conscience just ignore what I've discovered either over the past several months. I think there are some serious issues with how budgets have been represented and managed by our township, for our township. I've done my best to try to be accurate as possible. If anyone has additional information to help improve accuracy, I welcome and support it. The following information that I'm going to be giving you is from CTAS Township Budgets and Invoices. Historically, how budget information is presented can be difficult to follow. Additional supporting information on this is by excerpts from township meeting minutes. I've struggled, as I mentioned earlier, for many months now trying to determine the budgeting needs for the township's roads. Do my best to provide accurate and transparent information. Again, if there's any other additional information, I am certainly open to it. The township financial data is very convoluted and requires effort to discover and piece together how things were being done. I strongly believe the taxpayers are entitled to know how their money is being spent and to represent that as accurately as possible. First, let's take a look at how the budget report looks and is laid out in the next two slides. So these next few slides might seem a little daunting, but I got to get through them so that we can get into the rest of it. So the next few slides will explain the format and the structure of the way the budget information has been shared. Okay, so we'll walk through this page here. So that we're all on the same page. Everybody can see that pretty good? I'll get my, I actually got a pointer here. Look at this. Okay. So, one, the circled area at the top identifies the proposed budget year. And to the right of that top is the date of which it was generated. So this was generated back on August 10th of 15. The red arrow points to the disbursements or receipts section of the budget. The gold arrow on the left side column lists the various accounts and sub-accounts used to itemize disbursements in this case, or receipts page for the budget. There are different pages that relate to additional receipts or disbursements details based on the general format. My focus tonight will be primarily on disbursements part of the road budget information. So the blue number here, you'll see we're looking at here. This was what was budgeted. It's because I'm at an angle, that's why it's shaking. Then this actual is what was reported to the public as what was actually being spent from these budgets. Okay, so the first two columns relate to the budget. The previous year. So when we're looking at our budgets this spring, this is what we're looking at for proposed. This is this year. Well, this is 15, but and then this was 15, and as of August 10th, 15, that's what they spent. And then this shows what was the previous year. So the next columns for the proposed budgets for the next year. The far right column shows the percentage change up or down from the budget in comparison from the proposed. So this over here shows you percent changes. Okay. So let's continue. For the previous year, let's see, next slide. And the current actual is the amount that was actually spent. I just explained that. So the actual budget is what was planned to be available to spend for that sub-account again. So it was planned that they were going to spend $8,000 in 15. The yellow arrows point to the road repair sub-account. So here we get the road repair in 14 was $110,000 and what was spent. Mixed in are subtotals for accounts, groupings, and columns. So again, you'll see on the far right shows the percentage change up or down. It's important to look at the dollars related to the percent change. So some of these, it looks like it's a huge change percentage-wise, but if you look at some of these. It's like a 50% reduction in $100 is $50. So percentages, it's all relational to the dollar amount. Finally, the green arrow shows the total distributed disbursement amount for the entire fund. So that's where we are down here. Okay. This is just a minor example of a variance. Again, not everything can be perfect. We understand that, but the goal is to represent what the actual expenses are as honestly as possible when preparing and overseeing a budget. Just like a household, you need to manage the money to meet the needs and in a planful way rather than a reactionary whenever possible. Example, if your roof's going to need to be done in 30 years, it's probably best not to wait till the week before to start planning for it. So if you haven't already started to save for those expenses, oftentimes we don't want to neglect today's needs versus tomorrow's either, and that's why we have a budget plan. The goal is to predict as best as possible based on past information. That's key, past information. So having good historical data is critical to make sound decisions. So let's look at some actual budget info. All right, I'm going to kind of fly through 14 because we don't have a lot of data on that. I have stuff back then. So this information was taken directly from the budget as reported on 8/10/15. So the budget was $8,000. We spent nothing in 14 on gravel. Road repair, the budget was $110. We spent $37,000. So we underspent by $73,000 that year. So remember, this is all money that was taken out of your taxes that wasn't spent to go towards roads. It's difficult to compare and track in the way it's been presented to the township over the years. The layout is per the report from the program and is this is neither right nor wrong. It just needs to be understood in relation to the budget reports that we're getting. There are often 9 pages of information given at these various elements to digest in real time during the continuation meetings. So that's why I'm kind of presenting this to you now so we know what we're looking at in the annual meeting. Also, a different format has been used to report the annual meeting, which does not have comparative information. So for 14 here, you take the $8,000 plus the 72 let's see. So where are we at here? So we underspent by $72,000 in 14. Okay. So we'll just move on to the next one because I didn't have all the data for 14. So for 15, so for this one, gravel, the actual budget, what was presented to the public was $10,000. That next year, we were told they spent $10,000. Well, looking at all of our invoices, we actually had invoices for $43,000 for gravel that year. So we overspent by $33,000, $795. Well, that money wasn't kept there. They slid that over to road repair, where our budget was $110,000. Road report, we only had $350 spent on road repair that year. But it was shown that we spent, $34,000. So gravel costs are moved into the road repair account, skewing that account information. Again, there's only 350 actual road repair for invoices in 15. So virtually, there was no money spent on the paved roads at all.
So the bill, road repair, is that classified as for the asphalt roads, or would that just be anything that'd be a repair?
Well,
that's asphalt or gravel.
Well, they're using anything that's not, I don't know. It's, if you have a gravel budget and you're putting some of the gravel under road repair, it's skewing that. So now, so the residents are looking at this and they're thinking that we're spending 300 or 33,000 on road repair.
Right.
But they included beaver removal, beaver dam, some other things. I would personally like to, and they had potholes and those types of things. I would personally like to set up another sub-account for potholes and for any miscellaneous, extraneous things outside the road bed. So those are things I want to look at, but right now, they've just got a gravel and road repair. Here's the first question for the night. Do you think this shifting is the way budgeting should be done? Should we be shifting money from one, it shows it's supposed to be coming from gravel and we throw it in road repair? Should we be doing that? I just need to know for the next few years.
No, absolutely not.
No.
Okay,
Have to do with Social Security.
so let's continue. This information was taken directly from the budget report in 8/3/17. This is the 2016 gravel budget. Actual budget was 10,000, the budget was shown as 10,000. We were told that we spent 10,000 on it. The difference was 0. However, we've got invoices, the rest of the story, we've got gravel invoices for $68,000 that year. And we were told that we had $10,000.
And where did they hide the rest?
It's not hidden, they shifted it. So what they did, so over the, I'm just gonna finish this here. So over the past several months, again, I've spent a lot of, I was hoping to do more with the roads this year, but I didn't know where we were at. Am I supposed to spend 30,000? I didn't know. So I spent countless hours going through entry from CTAS, the accounting system, other information I was given and trying to match the invoices and the budgets for the past several years. I never expected to find these significant discrepancies and misrepresentations. I thought, probably like you, that all this would be pretty straightforward, and I thought we'd just jump into this and keep going. But it's been anything but that. I can think you can see for yourselves kind of what's been happening. Again, another question, interaction. Do you think it's important to have accurate information in the budgets?
Absolutely, yes.
Yes.
2016 Road and Bridge. In 2016, our budget was at 10,000. They said we actually spent 27,000, so we overspent by 17. However, actual invoices showed 32,664, not 27,312. So take that 1,700 plus the 5,000, we're at almost $23,000 of overspent, and all that money was shifted to the road and bridge, or to the road repairs. Which, when I'm looking at this, as a resident, I'm thinking, okay, they're doing crack sealing or they're doing chip sealing or something like that. No, it was all gravel. Development, so in real dollars, the road repair budget was underspent by about 98,000. My goal is to develop a comprehensive road maintenance plan, and the bottom line is so that we have an effective workable plan. You need to know what's been done and when, so you know what needs to be done and when. Your plan is only as good as the data you use to create it. That's why I've spent so much time trying to determine the facts about our roads. I want a good, realistic, and cost-effective plan for our township. Be done, rhetorical. This isn't a rhetorical question. Is everybody wanting a realistic, cost-effective plan?
Yes.
Thank you. I think I may have missed something there. So for 17, the actual budget was 110. Road repair budget was 50,000. So we underspent 59,000. Additional invoice gravels was 22,000 were shifted to road repair. Only 25,000 was actual road repair, which includes almost 7,000 to disposal cuts and beaver dam removal. So actual road repair for 17 was less than $20,000. 1,200 was used for patching potholes that year. Okay, keep going here. I'm behind. So for 18, information was taken directly from the budget report again. Gravel, actual amount, we were told the budget was $30,000. We were told that 18,000 was spent, so we underspent by 11,000 is what we were told. Actual gravel invoices are 69,000, not the 18,000 that was told to the public. That's the question. Is it acceptable?
Who's hauling the gravel?
Where's the gravel?
Where's the gravel?
I've got spreadsheets showing where I went. It's been kind of all over.
Except on your
In 18, gravel, actual budget, again, 30,000, spent, underspent. Gravel costs appear to be lower than what was budgeted as reported. So all that $69,000 was spent thrown over here. So all you people that live on pavement, you're thinking your roads are getting fixed, they're not. Additional gravel costs, so that was combined, we had 69,000 plus 2,000 budget expenses. With 18, I'm just having a tough time getting the numbers here to reconcile.
Where was that, where were the truck repairs all thrown under because?
Okay, and this has nothing to do with truck repairs. This is
Spring of 19, okay.
Yeah, spring of 19, no, that, I wasn't gonna bring that up, but I'm just, since you brought it up, we had 2 plow trucks purchased in 2016, one for $4,000, one for $14,000, so for a total of $18,000 worth of, I'm getting sidetracked here, but bottom line is, in February, sometime February, March, the trucks broke down, and we spent over $30,000 was spent on truck-related expenses. And I'm looking back again. Not only am I looking at CTAS, I'm looking at meeting minutes. We're looking at invoices, all those types of things, and I have nowhere to find that a discussion was made by the board as to who made the decision to fix those old trucks. I mean, Thomas,
It was never done.
No, it was just,
Let's go forward and add it back in.
so there was never discussion with the board as to who was gonna fix them or how much it was gonna cost?
nope.
You spent $30,000 on 2 vehicles, cost more to repair than what they were worth.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't have the info, but yeah, I've got the information here if you wanna look at it, all broke down on a page here.
Out of curiosity, who repaired those trucks? Who got the money?
I don't recall who it was at this point. I can look into that and get back
That
to you.
might be important.
Yeah. So, moving on, sorry. Distracted. So, slide. So everybody understood, okay, so sometimes more questions than answers in gravel in 2018. $140,000 combined budgets minus $71,000 combined expenses. Remaining balance was $46,000. Again, we've got a discrepancy. I'm coming up with about $21,000 between invoices as reported, and I can't find that, so I'm sure it's somewhere in the files back there. Township roads are to be maintained and improved by township per statute. I brought this up in the past, the October 19th. No, let's see here. Yeah, back in October. In fact, more than 90% of the township roads are, more than 90% of the township paved roads, which are township required to be paved, haven't been maintained with chip sealing in the last 10 years. Chip sealing is a basic road maintenance that's been neglected for years in our township. So as I've shared, all township roads are our responsibilities. In fact, we have a responsibility to maintain and improve the roads. That doesn't mean that we can ignore the paved roads or not pave those that should be. One of the most important aspects to maintaining longevity of paved roads is a regular chip seal and crack filling. A maintained road is not more costly than gravel. I explained that a few months back, especially when the usage reaches high levels. Just like when you're maintaining wood in your home, you seal it to preserve it. The same is true for our roads. So, why have the paved roads not been maintained? That's the question. So this is what happened. Why lower the critical budgets? In 2008, our budget report, we had annual sub-account budget amounts of $115,000 for $15,500 for gravel. We had $125,000 for road repair. But you'll see, 14 they lowered it. It's still finally in 2018, they got it back up a little bit here. But now all these paved, this is again, what I would consider paved roads, or even less than they had back in 2008. Road repair budget misrepresentation in 5 years. It seems we have been given misinformation and misrepresentation. The truth is that the road repair budget is underspent by about $703,000. In 5 years, less than $50,000 has been spent on road repair. Now, something that's going to come up at the annual meeting, this isn't in my notes, but we've got an issue with donations. There's certain people that, and if that's what the public wants, we'll do the donations. But if we continue giving like we've been giving the taxpayers other people's money away, that means every 7 years, what I've figured out with the road plan that I've set up, so every 7 years is kind of what I figured we'd be doing sections of road for chip sealing. It should be done every 5 to 7 years. So every 7 years we have to skip that so that we can give our donations to people. So just keep that in mind for the meeting coming up in March. So this is where we're at. This is what we were told was spent. This is what we were underspent, but this was actually what was spent. So this is not what we spent on paved roads. That's what we spent right there. The information was taken directly from the budget reported 8/6/2018, 2017 road and bridge budget, miscellaneous accounts, 0. Miscellaneous budget, 102. Miscellaneous overspent. So where is that money going? All that money that we were saving on not paving the roads, on a Massey Ferguson tractor could be one. However, this information was totally retrospective and purchased without actual budgeting for it. So what they did is they spent $102,000 for a large purchase. I mean, the cost to rent a tractor, Thomas, what's the cost to rent?
$2,500 for a week.
$2,500.
Puts 40 hours on it. The township did it for years.
So if it was so imperative to purchase a tractor, we could have put it in the budget, but this money, I think, was pulled from our road and bridge, our road repair. Well, it's all part of the same. So instead of pulling it from the cash fund, again, don't quote me on this, it came right out of our road and bridge budget, our road repair budget. So this could have been saved, we could have saved up for this for another year, and for $2,500 we could have mowed our ditches. But now we've got a tractor back there that's been for almost 2 years. It's got 157 hours on it. 158 hours on it. Bottom line, June 2017, this is where the purchase of the tractor came up. It was directed to obtain prices. They could discuss it further at the next meeting. They also were directed her to look into renting some equipment. The following month, some research was purchasing the new tractor along with the flail mower and a boom mower. The dollar amount was not to exceed $110,000. Motion carried. I don't know if I have it up here. I think the total that was spent on that tractor with all the attachments was about $124,000, right around there. So the average gravel cost per year, if you add up all the gravel that we spent in the township, is $53,000 a year. So 30,000 here. So we had budgeted 60,000. We've got invoices of 154,000. So that's what we've been spending on gravel. Let's see here.
That's what Rick's not here
So, the whole minutes except, get it back up here, sorry. This purchase was made even though it appears there was no operator for the equipment. I don't know. From what I understood, the mowing was always done by Carl Sanford or somebody else. So we didn't have anybody really to operate that equipment. Again, could be wrong. So why rush? Why not budget this for it and authorize the money so that we're a little bit more transparent? Is this lack of transparency a concern for anyone?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
And why did
1 month and the next one?
What's that?
It's like June and then July?
Yeah, within a month, they decided to make the purchase. I do have the information, $2,500 a week to rent the equipment. I'm gonna wrap this up here. I think I talked about everything. Yeah. What the data shows is that gravel budget, as reported, totaled to $60,000. What was reported as spent for gravel was $65,000. That seems okay at first, however, we now know that gravel invoices for the last 4 years was $214,000 over there. The expenditures were represented as road repair. They are not road repair. What we know is that the average annual cost was $53,000, certainly not the $10,000 or even $30,000 as reported. You, the citizens, will need to be the judge and select how you want your township to operate in the future by the upcoming March election. Do you want honesty and integrity in your township, or is what we've been experienced and now acceptable? So it's the time to apply the golden rule. We need to get the truth in taxation. It sure seems that there's been a lot more issues than just roads that this rule should apply to as well, at least in my opinion. And again, this is just the gravel and road repair. And you guys saw all the other accounts that are in there. I'm not saying anything wrong in those other accounts. These are the only ones I've been able to look at. This has taken me way more time than I thought it was going to. So that's it. Thank you for your time. Good job. I'm going to hand this down if you guys want. Here's some of the information that just kind of encapsulates to maybe 4 slides. If you can hand that out, I appreciate it.
Mr. Richards, zoning administrator's report.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Planning Commission held last month, we had items related to Silver Lake Oaks. That's a county road, County Road 17 Aspen Road. You have that in front of you tonight for sketch planning. We also continue discussion on venue regulations. The discussion right now is whether to use interim use permit, conditional use permit for those, but I think the Planning Commission is ready to pretty much make a recommendation on that. We're holding yet another public hearing, for that February 3rd meeting. Also, solar energy systems, the Planning Commission is comfortable with that and asked to publish a public hearing for the February 3rd meeting on that. So they're moving ahead with items. You'll be seeing at least those event venue and the solar energy systems in the next couple of months. And then just day-to-day, assisting Doug with any zoning questions. There's a couple a week that we address, and it's probably pretty quiet right now, but it'll pick up again in the spring when people start doing some additional construction and so forth.
Plus, we'll be asking a lot about wetlands.
So that should be it for the zoning administrator report.
Okay. We will move on to new business, and the first one is the Silver Lake Oaks sketch plan.
Yeah, as I mentioned, the Planning Commission looked at this at their January 6th meeting. The sketch plan is located, it's on the southeast side of Silver Lake, described as part of Government Lot 2 in Section 35. As I said, it's on Aspen Road. The subdivision will consist of 21 lots, a total of 75 acres. Some of the lots will directly access the county road, Aspen Road, and others on a newly created street within the subdivision. So they're asking to construct a new paved street through that subdivision. Property is guided for rural residential in the comp plan and zone rural residential district. Planning Commission discussed this. They expressed some concerns with the density of the plat, the direct access for some of the lots onto Aspen Road, the small buildable areas of the lots, mainly because, again, with the amount of wetland and with the Silver Lake, some of the building areas are small, but we do not regulate a minimum size of buildable area of the lot. other concerns related to the septic and buildable paths for lots and buildable hardship. Sketch plans are typically not reviewed by the town board, but again, since it's a fairly good-sized subdivision for the township, we thought we should bring it to you. Planning Commission did recommend that. We just received the information for the preliminary plat. So now we're getting additional information that Todd, the township engineer, and I can start looking at to make sure of the buildability of the lots and make sure that there's enough high ground, etc. So we're in the process of doing that now as we're looking at that. But for the sketch plan review aspect, it appears that all the lots meet all the minimum standards for sizing. The setbacks would be adequate. Easements, again, we address that more as we look at the preliminary plat. I talked about some of the issues with the plat. Again, some of the small buildable area sizes. Again, that's just a concern and not really, it does not necessarily not comply with our ordinance. There is a little piece, a little outlot B at the lower level of it, the southwest corner. That will have to combine with the property to the south of the county road. There's another parcel that's under the same PID across to the east on County Road 117. We'll be addressing that as part of it also. The county has taken an initial look at it. The main thing is they feel comfortable with the location of the two roadway entrances on either side of the plat. Again, and with the lots down in block 2, lots 1, 2, and 3, the direct access onto the county road. Planning Commission had a lot of concern about, again, people coming around that curve, and then there's many driveways off of those. I believe there'll only be 3 driveways to meet the county spacing requirements. The house pad septic systems, again, Todd McLeod, the township engineer, and I will be looking at that further now that we have additional information to ensure that that is adequate. Grading and drainage and so forth. We'll be looking at the roadway construction too. So again, sketch plan, we're not dealing with preliminary plat, we're just dealing with the sketch plan. The intent of this tonight is ask any questions of the developer and the engineer.
I got one kind of for the board and for the developer. I don't see a park on here. Do we not charge a park fee?
We will charge a park fee per lot, as we have with the other subdivisions. So Silver Lake Pines paid $1,200.
But are we gonna put a park in, or are we just gonna collect the money?
I would say we collect the money. Again, when you're dealing with small plats like this, I don't think the township really wants to start creating little areas for parks that, unless you think differently.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, you got 21 houses in there, it's 21 younger families.
The question is, does the township want to maintain a park there?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if we're going to charge a fee for it, why are we?
And I would say that the fee that you're charging, again, is $1,200 per lot. You're probably better off looking at some pedestrian trail connections, other types of things, rather than parks. A lot of cities, townships, and so forth have done that with each of a small subdivision, taking these bits of property that they then have to mow and maintain. And then if you need to put park equipment, you got to maintain it, and there's a lot of expense to that. You know, that's something. If you feel that that's necessary in this area, you know, you can take a look at it. But right now, the comprehensive
rough
plan.
math, you're looking at $25,000 just in a park fee. And I don't know. I have a hard time taking 25 grand from someone who wants to build a house just because.
But remember, if you take a park dedication, just as park dedication, you don't also get the $25,000. So the township then has to maintain, and if you're going to build a swing set and so forth, that's all coming out of your park budgets.
Okay.
So I do think it's important to note, BAM, Builders Association Minnesota came out with a article in their paper, and it talks specifically about some court cases that have come up when municipalities don't have a direct plan for the fees that they're actually collecting. And so I think the township will have to take a long, hard look at if they're gonna collect these fees, that they got a plan for what that's gonna impact.
You really should. In taking a look at your comprehensive plan, it really says nothing about adding any parkland or doing anything with parkland. So, doing a basic a plan that shows, again, this is how you're going to expend these funds. I don't know if there is a separate park fund that's been established. They're digging. There's $13,000. So you're not going to get much for that. So again, it's my recommendation, at least with this plan, that, and at this time, you don't take any parkland, but we should look at what upgrades down the road.
Something other than parking, like you said, trail.
Yeah, it might be.
Or something like that.
Right, exactly. But there might be some, interconnections between some of these plats in this area via trailers or whatever that makes some sense. Again, no one's looked at that, but we could do that down the road. So I guess what I'm looking for, if there's any other questions, any questions of the John Dolls or anything at this point before we proceed with preliminary plat.
Has there been a DNR review?
No. Well, I believe they've had some discussions with the DNR, but we will probably send it over tomorrow. Now that I have a preliminary plat, I'll send it over to them and see if they have any comments.
And then I know one thing, you guys already heard this at the planning commission meeting about the buildable site, that are they going to be made aware that more than likely they're not going to be able to add an outbuilding on some of these that are too small. So that we just want the residents coming back in 3 years and saying, hey, I'm going to put a 20 by 30 barn, and it's like, you can't.
Right. No, that'll just reflect the price of the lots.
Okay.
That's gotta be told. If we know anything, we gotta tell them. So when we get our plat together with the plat price list, we can just put that right on there.
When you have 2.5 acres plus minus, are you guaranteeing it's gonna be at least plus? Or at least 2.50?
That's just, that's just their standard terminology for acreage.
Right, but if they're 2.49 or 2.48, you're not gonna come back at us for a variance and.
They are 108,900 square feet plus. So technically there's no minus, but that's just the way.
Okay. So that's the absolute minimum is 2.5, okay. Any other questions?
As it sits now, everything meets our current.
Again, with the additional information that we've just received on the preliminary plat, we'll have a better chance. Again, this is probably a more detailed sketch plan than we even require, but the preliminary plat gives us a lot more information. So, yeah, we'll go through that. I'll be doing that as I continue on this week too. For sure.
Does this also go to Mr. Geske?
Yes, we'll certainly pass it on to Todd also. That's good.
Any other questions, discussion, comments? If not, we'll move on to the next item, the stipend for Andrea Gerrard. Did I say that right?
I brought this up, taking meeting minutes, a couple meetings, with Andrea using her own equipment, her own phone, coming in here on her own terms. We never asked her to come in. She came in on her own accord. I haven't been to meetings. I've actually watched the videos when I haven't been in attendance. I think it's a real valuable asset, and I guess I'd like to see her get paid as like a board member would.
I really appreciate the time too, and volunteering her time. I ran this past another township, and they just were really hesitant on it because we don't control what's put out there. She doesn't work for us. It's been volunteer. If somebody else comes in and takes notes and they post them, we were going to pay those. I don't know. I just think we were going to be opening ourselves up to a lot of. This gentleman just really said you need to be real careful about that kind of stuff. I really hesitant to probably go that direction because it's a voluntary type thing.
if it's something we want to do, we can record them and keep our own digital recordings here.
But I just know from the history of the board, from the find out, we only kept our recording on cassette tape for 3 months.
Right.
If that.
Now we've got a live feed.
Right.
You know, it's a public open meeting. I mean, that's just, I understand where you're coming from, but.
I think we need to maybe look into it a little bit more, maybe review it another time after we, because I just made the call a half hour before I came to the meeting.
Okay. Nick?
I was just going to interject, like with the plowing discussion earlier, there were independent drivers that you would contract with that, like, you would rent their services, you wouldn't necessarily own the machinery, but they would provide the service and you'd have a contract to make sure that you're covered for what your desired output is and what your needs are, and they would have, I mean, their end of things. And so maybe that would be something where you would have the service and be able to retain maybe some of the videos. We could help you out with where to store them, things like that, but also with what we do in terms of sharing it on like the bulletin board group to make it accessible to the public as well. Maybe that would be our end of the contract, is that we would still be able to share the videos with the public, and you could also have our assistants maybe providing them on the website or something.
I mean, I'm not against it, I'm just saying just a stipend is not,
Sure.
There might be other avenues.
Mm-hmm.
What came up was a stipend. I think there needs to be more to it than that. If it's going to be a contract, it needs to be a contract.
Okay.
Yeah, attorney, if I may make a contribution, Mr. Hiller, would you want to?
Do we, if we do that, is that something you have to publish for an actual position if you're going to be signing a contract and having them be a paid employee? Or are we going to have to go through that and kind of like we did with hiring the
because
clerk?
It would be almost like an appointment. We'd have to sign it.
Yeah, there were bids for like the plowing too.
Yeah. Thank you. Comments?
Pass it. Looks like it's already going around.
We can bring this up at the next month's meeting and maybe get some more information. Richard Reiman, escrow account. I talked to Mr. Yeski, and he said that he would like to meet with Richard before anything is done, so if we could table that to the next meeting, would be advised, I believe.
We need to make a motion to table it. I'd make a motion to table that until next meeting. I'd second that motion.
Motion made and seconded to table Richard Reiman escrow account till the next meeting. Is there any further discussion? And part of the issue is that apparently there is some little known or unknown statute or something that says if you have so many acres,
you can spread your own. What happened initially was, God bless the old board for dragging their feet and dragging their feet and dragging their feet. Richard had the house built, could not put the septic in. Brian, what was it, October, November? You finally
late in the year. We couldn't.
you couldn't do anything. Here sits a house built, not livable because there's no septic system. So what they do, they dropped a big tank in the ground, and there's a state statute that says, hey, you own X amount of acres, you can spread your own material. Well, put it in the ground, there's sensors in it, there's everything in it. Building inspector at the time kept going round and round, kept finding new reasons not to let them live in the house. And it finally, I got documentation on everything, the whole story timeline. Truth be told, septic truck comes out and pumps it whenever it's full. We don't spread it on our own ground because, quite frankly, I don't want to go into my animals. You know? So it doesn't get out on our ground. The truck comes, he takes it away, we write him a check for X amount of dollars. They've been living in the house for 2.5 years. And that's somehow or another, we came up with, or not we, the old board came up with the idea that we have to have a check for $5,000 in order to make this compliant. So the township's been sitting on $5,000 from Richard for the past 2.5 to 3 years, because now he's compliant, because we took his money. So, long and short of it.
And that really never came up before the board?
No.
It was never a board action?
No, it was just two people deciding, yep, okay, $5,000 sounds good. But that's what it is.
But I think we still want to get Mr. Geske involved and have him sign off on it, or
Investigate with MPCA.
So, motion's been made and seconded to table at the next meeting. Any further discussion? None, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. You got his number? Yep. Mr. Geske's on this. Appoint Absentee Ballot Board and a draft resolution. It's on the table in front of you. Resolution 20-01. Resolution authorizing Township Absentee Ballot Board. In the condensed version, therefore be it resolved, Princeton Township Board of Supervisors hereby authorize Princeton Township Clerk's office to implement the Township Absentee Ballot Board that would consist of a sufficient number of election judges as provided in section 204B-19, 204B-22 to perform the task. I would entertain a motion to accept that resolution.
I would move that motion.
Motion's been made.
I'll second it.
And seconded to pass resolution 20-01. Any further discussion?
Well, sorry, I didn't see it until just now, so I'm just reading through here. Is this giving us the dates when the absentee ballots can be cast?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's designed to take the heat off the election judges on the day of the election. So they can count absentee ballots that come in ahead of time and get it prepared to report on the day.
Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Set dates for Board of Canvass, Board of Review. The county gives us some option, I believe.
And in the way that Baldwin Township, they sent us their version of this, and fortunately I don't have it with me, but they do all of this on the night of the election. Because you have the township election, then you have the...
Oh, the canvass.
Yeah,
okay.
The canvass.
Board of Canvass is after the annual meeting.
After the annual
Adjourn
meeting.
or the recess of the annual meeting. Okay.
Board of Review is a different matter.
Board of Review is a totally different story, right? Okay, I move the Board of Canvass be done after the recess of the annual meeting and at the time of the announcement of the election results. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to have Board of Canvass March 10th after the annual meeting recess. Any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion is carried. Now, the Board of Review. The county giving us dates possible?
I don't have them.
We should be able to still set that in February, I believe. I think it's in April is the Board of Review. We could tentatively set a date for what's the best night of the week?
February?
For April, like mid-April.
during a regular meeting?
No, it has to be a special meeting, a separate meeting, because the county basically runs the meeting, but we have to have 3 people here, at least one of the 3, and I will be certified as they stand, or, I've gone through the training. If we don't have at least one person trained, then it rolls over to the county. But this is the first step for people to appeal their taxation, or appeal their valuation of their homestead. And if they don't come in and appeal to us, they can't go to the county or the state. And we've had very little turnout in the last 4 years.
There's a reason for that.
What's that?
I said there's a reason for that.
Yeah, because the county throws us out anyway.
No, because some of us wanted to talk about some of the taxes on our property, but we knew that based on the board that was sitting here, nothing would have been done. So we didn't bother.
A few years ago, we had several people who were, maybe be careful like this, they had an end maybe, and they got a tax break, and then the county threw it out. And we were threatened with that we were a little too gave out too many cookies. But it was people that were associates of board. Probably said one day.
This year might be different.
Yeah. Anyway, let's propose a date to the county of mid-April. What's the best day of the week?
It seems like it was a Wednesday last year. Drop one.
Drop 1, drop 2.
April.
April.
I give you April.
Well, it'll be tax day if we go to April 15th.
Bad idea.
22nd, the day after the township meeting.
That might be a good reminder for everybody too, if they're at the meeting.
Okay, let's tentatively suggest to the county that we set April 22nd. Maybe, I believe, Mr. Dahl, you could probably contact the county assessor tomorrow and ask for that date. If that doesn't work, backup date the week before, which is the 15th.
I'd go the week after.
Week after, I don't know.
Because we do the 28th, and then you've at least got, we can tell everybody at the meeting as a reminder. I'd rather do it that way, keep everybody informed. So 22nd with the 28th is backup, 29th later.
And usually they want to start at like 6:30 or something like that. And they basically run the meeting. I call the meeting order and turn it over to them. When they're done, it's basically adjourned.
And wasn't this the same where last year we didn't have anybody here, so this was kind of education as to how they that was informative.
Is there a motion to that effect?
I'd make the motion to have the first day of the board review, April 22nd, with a backup date of April 29th.
Motion's made, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded to have the board review tentatively for 4/22nd, or backup date 4/29. Any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion's carried. Township Clean-Up Day. The rainiest day
Let's do this April 22nd.
No, I think we're on the Saturday. Last Saturday of April, which would be the...
When did we do it last year?
What's that?
When was it last year? That's going to be a pretty
I think we had last
Saturday.
because I believe
right.
I believe
Third
the
or
city-
fourth.
I believe the city had it next week, yeah.
So the last one is April 25th, it looks like.
Yeah, April 25th. Set it?
Yep. April 25th sounds good.
And we would try to encourage board members and planning commission members to be here and help out. I think it's a nice PR move that we help as much as possible.
Forgot to say spouses.
What was it?
You forgot to mention spouses.
Oh, spouses.
We gotta recruit you.
Oh, absolutely.
If you want to bring cookies, that'd be great.
Township road tour, same day after the cleanup day. Oh,
Does that require a motion? Yeah.
sure. Make a motion. A motion made by Bill, seconded by Dave. Township cleanup day on 4/25. Any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion's carried. Township road tour. Right afterwards, I would say, and who, if we get new board members, at least have one of them.
You know, according to the MAC trainings, it's supposed to be the whole board does it.
The whole board.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that too from others.
You know, Bill and I kinda got thrown into it last year.
Well, there should be somebody that's.
I got a tractor and a hay rack, I can make a hay ride out of it.
But it's gonna be raining all that day.
Well, we need a special event permit.
Yeah.
We need it anyway.
And if you bring spouses, you get cookies, so.
Remember, if we all go, if we advertise it as a forum.
I think it'd be good if we get us everybody.
Yeah,
And we should advertise it anyway,
has to be
cleanup day, we should advertise it as
advertised.
a potential forum. Yep, because it is certainly an opportunity for, hopefully, okay, same date, 4/25.
Actually, I do have trailers.
Township annual newsletter.
I make a motion.
Oh, motion's been made by Dave, seconded by me. To have a township road tour immediately following cleanup day, and all board members could attend. Township annual newsletter should go out. It's nice to have it go out sometime before the cleanup day and the road tour, so people are aware that we're having cleanup day. It also advertises the prices for people bringing in mattresses and whatever they bring in.
Out of curiosity, going out with the newsletter, is Doug certified by DNR for burning permits now, or who's in charge of that?
I have not gotten my fire warden.
But you will, right?
I don't know.
Oh,
I'm new here.
maybe we have to contact DNR.
Yeah.
Do them online.
Because you get them online.
Yeah, that's all.
Most people now get them online.
That's all I've been doing it.
But I think you can.
Make sure you call in and get your verification code.
It's possible.
Make sure you call in and get your verification code, because otherwise it's not a legal permit.
They do.
You guys showed up at my place one night when I was doing that. I showed them that I called in.
Unless you have 3 inches of snow. Okay, Mr. Dahl, can you get one out, can use a copy of what we've had in the past and get it out sometime between election day and cleanup day?
Create a newsletter.
That's in the works.
Okay.
the election.
Yeah, we like to get out before the election.
Oh,
That'd be nice.
and incidentally, the election, we have 2 candidates for position 4.
We'll get off topic.
Well, as long as we're at the newsletter, Mr. Persing and who's running with you? Mr. Wilhelm, right? And the other position that is being vacated by Mr. Anderson is Mr. Hiller's is running. Okay, annual newsletter is in the works, and will be given out to, or sent out to every home in the township. Next item I have is the employee review. Mr. Henson, would you like your public meeting or open meeting, or closed meeting?
I would prefer a closed meeting on it. It really would kind of bore everybody in the room what goes on around here, so it really wouldn't be any need for anyone else to know about it.
I'd like to move it to the end of the meeting.
Okay. We will move that to the very end of the meeting. We will move on to location of annual meeting. Do we want to automatically move it to what's it, Old Middle School, or what's the official name of the school? Intermediate school, right?
Primary school.
The primary and intermediate is...
Intermediate.
Intermediate is the one right next to the primary. The middle school is the middle school.
That's along the river. What's one ran on for?
That's the intermediate.
That's intermediate.
The primary and the
They're grade
intermediate.
schools.
The new one is the primary school. The previously existing one is the intermediate.
You can tell by the size of the chairs.
The one they used to refer to as North Elementary is now referred to as the intermediate school.
Have the intermediate school kind of penciled in, sounds like.
And we should advertise it as such in the newsletter. And also on notices and on the bulletin board and whatever. Okay, do we need a motion?
To have the meeting location, I'd make a motion that we have our annual meeting moved to the intermediate school.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded to have the location of the annual meeting at the Princeton Intermediate School. Is there any further discussion?
We should probably look at approving, if it costs something, approve any expenses that it might take to have it there. Do we have to, it's $200, I don't know. One thing at a time?
Well, you can add that to your motion.
Then publications, we have to also approve any money for publications, because we got the Princeton Union Times, but is it not a bad idea to put it in the Princeton Today? I think we looked into that last year. I think Princeton Today is like $140 or $119, depending on where it is. For two pub. I'm just throwing it out for discussion. How are we gonna advertise this, make sure everybody knows? We'll have that on the door.
To be honest with you, your digital marketing is free, and I think you get more people.
Yeah, but we have it, so
We still
we have to have it.
I am aware of that, but instead of the Princeton Today, I mean, anybody reads Princeton Today most likely is reading the Union Times.
Okay.
Anything in the Union Times is also in the Town and Country. And the Town and Country is what's delivered out.
The
Union Times.
You could buy a bigger
We
ad
have to have it
space.
in there. So if we need to, or do you want to go elsewhere for publication, or just that one?
I was just throwing it out there for discussion.
And then it will be on our website and on the bulletin board outside here. Okay. Motion's been made to, I don't know if you can go to the, motion's been made to change the location of the annual meeting to Princeton Intermediate School.
March 10th.
March 10th. So the voting will close here at 8 o'clock. Isn't that right? Because you, at that point, you go here, you hear the election.
Yeah, the assumption is that the meeting will start over about at 8:15.
So the election judges will all be here, and we will open the meeting at 8:15 there. So we would then also have to have somebody taking minutes.
That's the citizens can do that.
Pardon?
Citizens meeting, citizens can.
Yeah, it's a total township meeting. not a board meeting. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of changing location of the annual meeting to the Princeton Intermediate School at 8:15 on March 10th, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. That brings us to open forum.
Joel Minks, resident over here. I just wanted to add one observation to Bill's work on the road signs. He reduced them from 295 to 165, our responsibility. Every time you get rid of a sign, you reduce your liability for traffic accidents and all that other stuff. So that's a big move. I know, just an example, we had a stop sign. It was in Sherburne County stop sign. We put 2 inches of overlay on the road. Later on, a lady went through the stop sign and got killed, unfortunately. And the county wrote out a big check because the sign was no longer 54 inches above the road surface. It was 52 inches above the road surface. And that was out of standards, and that 2 inches cost the county a big chunk of money. So the lawyers, anytime somebody goes through a sign, they're gonna measure, make sure the curb sign is so many feet from the curb. And so anytime you can reduce the number of signs, that's a very good thing, because less liability, less lawsuits, so. That's it.
Thank you for that, but it sounds as though the map we had showed all the signs. What we have in our 3-ring binder shows that it's 165, so nothing really changed. We're just not having to go out and look at 300 signs now.
Sounds better.
Yeah. But it still takes liability off the other 130.
Yeah, well,
Still did the
it's
work.
accounting, it's accounting, yeah, less work for us and everything, so.
Okay. Anybody else for open forum?
Okay, first, I just want to thank this board for hanging in there. You, as well as the residents, some of us have come forward and have experienced intimidation, threats. Residents, as far as like being taxed and assessed if they didn't like what you were bringing forward. Even if it was their responsibility, they were just going to charge you for anything they wanted, so go away. I personally want to thank Andrea and her husband for coming forward to add a level of transparency we would not have seen, and to support constructive change in this township that desperately needed it. I want to thank Mr. Richard for his professionalism that he's brought to this township. It has been refreshing. Board members, thank you all for putting up with issues that you've experienced. Citizens of this township, there are some serious things that have occurred in the last 5 years with the former board. There have been property rights removed and misrepresented while those were removed. There have been residents who've been intimidated. There has been things that have not been acceptable. And these citizens, it's our township, and if you want to keep it, show up. Because some of us can't fight this and will not continue to fight every month when you're not coming forward, because people have been elected into these positions with as few as 20 votes and 30 votes in the previous elections. Thank you, Thomas, for hanging in there. Township government needs to be for the township totally. This is not something for an individual or an agenda of a few. Townships are to support the residents of the township. And I'd like to encourage that we do whatever we can to get people out to vote and support this continued transparency, and to diligently stand up to the intimidation and the misrepresentation that we've experienced over the past few years. And Joel Minks, I want to thank you very much. Some of your other people that have been coming, Nancy, some of you that, and your families, and Doug, thank you so much. So I just want to say, as having been in the trenches here, been called a lot of names, but I'm willing to do that because people of this township deserve better than what they've received.
I'd like to see, in the budget, that we check the date and where it goes to and the amount, like, so we can see it. That's what I'd like to see.
It's in the packet, you can go in the office and see it, I believe, anytime before the meeting.
Budget.
No. The packet of what's being expended.
Are you talking the monthly bills?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They are
They're-
available.
I'm actually sitting here with a big stack of them.
Yeah, you can review them before the meeting, or they're here if you really wish to, or wish to look at them after the meeting. They are available.
It's your township, and you sign after this meeting, you're signing.
Yeah,
them.
I will be signing.
People can sit right here
Mr.
after
Dahl and
signing.
I will be signing them, and they'll be going out tomorrow. Thank you. Anything else?
Kevin Walls, President of the Township. I have been involved with the Princeton School District's Community Committee that has been meeting since November and putting together some recommendations for the school board. They will be presenting some recommendations on stuff to be done within the district. And at this time, the community is not recommending any substantial work to be done over by the middle school in the area of 33rd and 82nd. You know, if the board goes with the recommendations from the committee, those, you know, there's no additional construction going on in that area. There will be possibly some other construction, mostly at the high school. And then I also did mention that the township was letting bids for paving 82nd and 33rd. And that was met with mixed grumblings and smiles from some that were on the committee. So they've been informed. And then I just wanted to inform you, I don't know exactly what the recommendations are going to be to the board, but there's nothing really planned for that area of the middle school.
I think it would actually go through the city, I believe, would actually do the assessment.
The township has still got half of the roads.
And if that other property were to change hands, it would probably get a little bit of pressure on the township to annex that into the...
Depends on who, yeah.
I mean, if the school district allowed it, I would guess that there would probably be some straightening out of the lines. Thank you. Hope I didn't violate any inside information or anything. Any other open forum?
I would like to say something. Terry Persing, township member. I want to thank you both for all the work. I know how much work you put into that. Very much appreciated. And I know that maybe you mentioned this, but do you know where all that gravel that was purchased went? Did it go on our township roads? And you believe that the documents that you have proves that it's accurate? Because my background is in accounting, and those, when I even saw the annual report, I could tell right away that there wasn't the transparency that you're talking about. So offering up that transparency is a really good idea. And
in 18, I'm still struggling with some $2,100. I'm not sure where. These haven't come across it yet.
Yeah, so I just have a lot of concerns with my background and seeing what you presented today, and curiosity of the rest of it, and concerns for either the person that was sitting, however those documents or those numbers were either told to be put somewhere or something, is a lot of concern for maybe some of the board members that still sits on the board.
Well, I think in October when I presented about, or even just trying to come up with road grader, operator, and snow removal. A lot of the payroll, we had snow and ice removal that we were paying in July, August, September, October. I mean, and I don't, it was just maybe, you know, if those people were working in the winter and they moved into summer work, you know, when you're filling out any sort of document, any like QuickBooks, well, this is happens to be task. If that person's name is utilizing that sub-account number and they're not changing it, it's just carrying forward. So there was a lot of hours on both directions. There was road work being charged to winter work and winter work being charged to summer work.
And that's, you know, and my background, when you're doing that, you should pay attention to those things, and there is a lot of recurring things. But at some point, you should be able to review it, you know, or it should be reviewed and looked at and make sure that things are being done correctly. But there are so many mistakes that way that it's very concerning.
Even though there was one specific receipt where we had, I think, a $32,000 gravel receipt that was intentionally split. 10,000 exactly to the dollar amount went to gravel, and the balance went to road and bridge.
That's perfectly intentional.
Yeah, that was not.
And the report of how many yards of gravel were spread in different places.
I got 2 different reports showing different results.
And West Branch was one that was spreading it, so they knew where they spread the gravel.
Yeah, I've got spreadsheets, all sorts of them from, yeah, I have all that. Trust me.
Anything else for open forum? If not, we'll close open forum, go to reports, supervisors reports, Mr. Duden.
I would like to state, keep up the good work, Brian. Last weekend, didn't get a single phone call. I don't know what to tell you. You're doing great. So, keep it up.
Sure your battery wasn't dead.
I'm sure. No, I mean, I think a lot of it is helping too with the transparency, you know, we're throwing it up, you know, when Brian and I talk, we come up with when it's going on, we let everybody know ahead of time. You know, because I know we got 2 to 3 inches the one day, we didn't plow until the next morning or whatever.
Right, yeah.
But then I know Bill called me out one time and says, what are you guys doing plowing already? And I said, get them out, get them plowing before everybody gets home from work, otherwise it's just gonna get, you know, I think there's a lot of transparency goes along with throwing a notification out saying this is when we're planning on going out, not let's wait for the storm, then come up with a plan.
Wait 3 days to pump somebody out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those posts have gone really well, I want to say, with like the group and even just the page when you post it, and then I pin it right up to the top so that way everybody kind of sees in the township. We even had people in Princeton who don't realize they're not township, and they're like, hey, don't forget about me, and I'm like,
where's my road block?
Yeah, what about us? Yeah, so.
But we don't really get any negative feedback either.
No, and it's a lot of people saying like, thank you for letting us know, and that it works really well, and so the communication there I think has helped a lot of people understand what's going on.
But I mean, I know Connie had sent her, you know, I got crucified at one meeting because I was told that, you know, why are you doing all this? You're just creating more headache. And Doug, I mean, you're sitting in the same position. You don't even get any phone calls unless, hey, you missed the street. Whoops, my bad.
Yeah, and I've made a practice of calling people back afterwards, following up with them.
Sure.
And I know people express appreciation, but that was just, of course, basic customer service. You know, extraordinary, but it seems to be something that people really appreciate.
No, so keep up the good work. I mean, I think we're on the right path anyway. And by the way, we do have our other plow truck back. It is sitting in the shed, so we do have it as a backup. Total bills on that just come in just under $1,000 to get it all to par. Yeah. But it is ready for backup.
Under $1,000?
It's just under $1,000, yeah.
Well, it's $990. Well, we approved up to like over $1,300.
Yeah. So it is back here in the shed. Brian has used our road grader once, took it out, bladed all the ice off before we got the next storm. And then another thing we need to review is people on our charge accounts. Brian was not on our charge account.
But they still remember me from before.
Well,
so
yeah,
that's a big deal.
trust me, we got an email. But he did take our road grader up and filled it up with fuel, and they did send us a notification that he filled it up, even though he's not on our charge account. So I think we need to review some charge accounts.
Put me on.
Yep. That's all I've got. No weed reports.
No weed on that. Supervisor, Airport Board, we're having some issues with some statements that are being made by city council members about what the airport is costing the city, and we have to do a little education, I believe. City planning commission did not meet this last night because of the holiday. Mr. Person?
Yeah, no, there's not a whole lot to report. On the planning commission, I think, it's just gonna be important to make sure that everybody understands. We have a rule book that's, basically called our ordinance, and when people come forward with developments or they come forward with different ideas that they want to do, that we're actually implementing what's our rule book and probably not deviating from the rules. You don't deviate from any game rules. You can't inject your own personal opinion into it, into the rule book. So I think that's probably the biggest thing I see that we need to address. And then, if we do have an issue with buildable lots or roads on curves, because of the way the ordinance is written, then I think it was last April or May I brought it up that really the ordinance is very poorly written, and we need to take a long, hard look at the entire ordinance. There's things in there such as you can't have steel siding. I can't remember, the 66 rule on a curve. Well, Bill has said anything that's not a straight line is a curve. Well, all of a sudden, virtually you can make a road that just about every lot goes down to 66 feet. These are the rules we put forth for the developers and for the different ones, and now we're upset with how the rules were written, and so we gotta kind of take a long, hard look at maybe taking a new look at our ordinance and our comprehensive plan. I think the comprehensive plan doesn't really mimic the ordinance very well when we take a long, hard look.
I don't even believe we have a comprehensive land use plan. I have not found the map.
Oh, that could very well be.
So,
yeah,
it would be at least to have that.
So we're getting some things tackled, but I think there's some things on the horizon that we need to take a look at. And then, a great presentation. Would it be possible to order up a monitor so that these things can,
I second that.
Yeah.
I spent an awful lot of time getting that projector to work and running around town to make it, I spent all day Monday basically trying to get that to work.
I was at a guy's office the other day, he had a nice big screen, and actually the computer plugs into the USB port, or
HDMI.
port. And if you could plug your jump drive into that to make a presentation, that would be fantastic, and everybody could follow along easier. So.
And if we're going to be more transparent with it, well, it's your time.
Yeah, no, I would like to see the board move towards allowing for, probably a few different things that, we know that we have some aware items to take care of, which would be some of the lighting and the smoke detectors, and, whether that's gonna have to be a hardwired system for smoke or a battery operated, we might be able to bundle things together, because the smokes would be a low voltage item to take care of. Does anybody want to make any moves to take care of that, or should we table those items till next month? I don't,
For what?
you can buy quite a TV at Costco for $400 anymore.
I think something like this, they're anywhere from 400 to 1,000, or up and up, but I'm guessing you can get one pretty reasonably priced for around $500. It'll be everything that we need.
Right, and my thought with the TV is, then you wouldn't have to turn the lights down.
I think we should table the discussion on that too.
So we could at least,
Try to get a 10-year price for that.
Yeah.
You want to move it?
Okay.
Will you touch on the computer?
So, I currently have a preliminary narrative report that was provided to us. You know, we don't, the file that got emailed in was encrypted, and we've had trouble getting at it. I did get the attorney to agree to having a discussion with me on the phone, but I have to be here with Doug to do it. Doug's gone tomorrow, and then he's got training on Thursday, and I'm unavailable on Monday, Tuesday. And so it'd have to be next Thursday that I could do that phone call with him. But like,
is Friday a possibility?
No, not this week for me, no. But I would like to make a motion to be able to purchase 5 jump drives. It was actually one for each supervisor, and then when the reports come off, we put them on a jump drive and they'll get mailed out to the prospective supervisors. Some of this discussion is obviously probably needs to be talked to an attorney, how much we can talk about or how much we can't. You know, personally, I don't see any names called out in this as to, you know, or quite honestly, you know, there's not, I don't know that there's anything wrong. You know, we just don't know, but it's still sensitive information with an employee or a past employee, and we want to respect that. So could I I would like to make a motion to purchase 5 jump drives, which I'm guessing you're talking tops $35.
Yeah, $5 a piece.
Yeah, $5 a piece plus some tax probably. You think higher? I was ordering off of Amazon. It seemed like they ordered a bunch of them.
Find out how big you gotta make them.
Yeah, how large of a file are you sending?
I carry a terabyte just for fun.
I'll make the motion.
You'll make the motion?
To purchase, that you can go ahead and purchase the.
Okay.
5 jump drives, thumb drives.
Yep.
Flash drives, whatever it is.
And then I can.
Floppy disk, I think is the word you're looking for.
Yep.
Thumb drives.
We call it thumb drives.
Like a personal.
We're gonna go with that new technology, the smaller one.
The hard one, right? Yeah. Make fun of the old man.
I'd second that motion with a cap of $100.
Motion made and seconded to purchase 5 flash drives for up to $100. Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. One thing I forgot to bring up was when we're progressing with the Aware, I think we're going to need a little bit of a budget for some of the things that we need, like some simple things like a covered garbage can, the metal plant or self-sealing fuel cans, the fireproof cabinets. I think we already approved the cabinet for personnel files and so on, right?
Do we have it in the budget already for shop supplies? Yeah, I was gonna say, is there no provision in the budget for some minor stuff like that?
It is incredible. Not good enough to cover like a fireproof container or flammable container.
You have the budget? Where would that fall under?
Office is over there. Office.
Is it the red arrow, not the blue arrow?
Yeah, don't read my notes. We'll lose it.
All I know for sure is that the gravel didn't end up on 82nd or 33rd. We had 75 yards in 3 years. Total.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You gotta spread it very thin to get that scratch.
You damn right, that teaspoon was worn out by the time they were done.
That's called spreading like 6 gears of dump truck.
That's right. Get her going 30 miles an hour before you open it.
Yeah, I can make her only done that.
I've seen you do it. There's a T at the end.
Yeah, we do have a $5,000 repair and maintenance budget.
Better hope the box is empty, you won't make that on the corner.
That's for grab. That's for 2020. Push on the 18. We're in 2020. We're in 13. We have at least.
Okay, I would say we direct Mr. Nixon maybe to proceed with buying some of the most.
So it's $500 worth for now, or was it up to $500 worth?
The cabinets, the flammable cabinets more than that, right?
Oh, yeah, the flammable.
It depends on what size you gotta have. If you're gonna store a 55-gallon drum of oil in it, you're looking at about $1,000 cabinet to have storage that large, but
And we do have a 55-gallon drum back there.
there, it has been bought that way, but it doesn't necessarily have to be bought in 55-gallon drums. If you wanna have having 2.5-gallon containers just enough to what you feel you need to have for the in that cabinet, it's gonna
Well, if we're not running
make
equipment
it,
every day,
it's gonna make a huge difference in what's gonna be in there.
So we don't have to purchase all this month. Let's just set a dollar amount and he can get what he needs to get and look into some other price and then we can approve more if we need to.
The low-hanging fruit.
No. You wanna set it at 500? So you said Dave?
Kenny, how much, what do you think, what would you feel you'll need to start at for this month for that list that we went through last night?
I would say $500. I mean, that would cover a lot of it. It would cover the fuel cans. It would cover the ladders. It would at least do that much. I mean,
That big ladder might be a couple $100 to get to the rooftop. So maybe let's do $750. I'd make a motion for $750 to make purchases towards the AWARE program and get us caught up to speed.
I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion's carried. We will direct Mr. Hanson to spend up to $750 on getting us going on the AWARE project. Thank you. Anything, Mr. Richard?
Fire board advisory, let's see. Grants, looks like the hose grant may be coming, sounds like. They've got a drop tank, that may be coming. And then the DNR grant was approved, and I don't recall what that was from a few months back.
That was a 50-50 grant that we did with the DNR.
Okay.
So what it did is the Relief Association, if I remember right, gave $2,500 and it wasn't quite a full 50-50 what the DNR gave us, but we bought some backpack blowers and some other stuff for wildland firefighting. And then the drop tank is, they want to buy new drop tanks for all of our tenders. Those are getting pretty outdated and tattered up, so they want to put new tanks on them. So
Can you explain what that is?
It's the portable swimming pool, so it sits on the side of that yellow thing that's on the side of our water trucks. We take that out, open it up, and we can dump all of our water into there, and then our engine can suck the water out of that and put it on the fire. Usually that's where the rookies end up. We throw them in there.
Contracts should come back to the city of Princeton, so that's on next month's agenda, so if we can get those out and review that. Firefighter compensation rate increase of $1 per week.
Per hour.
Per hour, per week, per hour. That was it.
Now I get $11 to run into a burning house.
So, I'll just read the letter that was sent, that was given to us by the fire chief to advisory board. The firefighters put their life on the line every time they respond to a call, from driving to the station to responsibilities to any type of call. This also takes the firefighters away from their families and family events. The training demands also put a strain on the firefighters and their families. I am very fortunate to have a great fire department of firefighters. Their dedication to the community is second to none. Firefighters are currently making $10 an hour. In 2003, we took a $1 hour cut in pay to help offset the deficit that the city was in. We got that dollar back in 2006. We have not had a raise since then. Our great fire department is made up of volunteers throughout the community. A nationwide problem of decreased volunteerism is growing, and volunteers are becoming harder to obtain. We strive to take care of our volunteers as best we can. The townships and the city of Princeton have been very good to the fire department since I became chief. We have gotten some new and safer equipment. We've also been able to upgrade our fleet. I'm asking for approval from the Fire Advisory Board to give the firefighters a $1 per hour raise to be effective on January 1st, 2020. This raise is within the budget and will not increase the cost of the township or city. 2019, fire rescue responded to 403 calls. This is officially the second busiest year we've had. 2017, we responded to 415. For the month of December, we responded to 29. And new engine is coming along great. Estimated cost was $591,000. It's still under the $600,000 budget. That was it from them. And Thomas, thank Brian, yeah, you guys have been doing, it's just been great working with these three. And I always jump in the middle and mess everything up.
Don't worry, I'll wait till next morning.
And then working with Kenny too yesterday with the AWARE program. That guy has a lot of knowledge. He's a very huge asset to the township, I feel. That's all I had.
Treasurer's report. We had claims for approval.
Clerk's report.
Oh, clerk's report.
Sorry. I have to take everyone's indulgence, and please don't lynch me. It's not the intermediate school, it's the middle school. Sorry, we need to amend that. I'm sorry, my bad. All of it. So middle school.
Make a motion to amend the annual meeting location to the middle school.
Bill made the motion, Dave seconded it, so.
I will amend the original motion to state that we will move the annual meeting to move it to the middle school instead of having it at the intermediate school on March 10th.
Motion's been made and seconded to amend the previously passed motion. It's not quite the way it should be, but close enough. Any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank you. I have a few items to go through here. This, I'm not sure if the planning commission determines this or if we do, but again, the September planning commission meeting date is scheduled for Labor Day. It cannot be that day. My suggestion is to move to the next day, the 8th, so we don't have to move the town board meeting off the 15th. But that's just a suggestion. So who will determine that? Is it the town? You set the schedule?
We set the schedule.
Okay. So, I suggest take action on it now because we're posting these dates.
So to make the original motion, we have to go back to that at all.
I will move to amend our meeting dates for the planning commission to September. What's the date gonna be, the 8th?
Which day would be the 8th?
And that's still gonna be Monday.
That's a Tuesday.
Okay, planning commission meeting's on Monday, right?
They are, except if it's Labor Day.
Oh, I see. I was saying you were going a week ahead. Okay, you're just one day.
Well, I'm saying if you go a week, you're gonna knock out, you're gonna have to reschedule the town board, which is, it'll be the next night. So, it's your call, I'm just saying that would be the situation.
I will finish the motion and we'll change the date for the planning commission to September 8th. Motion made and seconded to change the planning commission meeting date to Tuesday, the 8th of September. Any further discussion? Not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion's carried.
I have another ranking detail questionnaire, SSTS, subsurface treatment system, subsurface sewage treatment system. The MPCA wants to do an assessment based on our ordinance. So, I put that out there, they'd like to do it in February. But there's a questionnaire here that needs to be answered ahead of time. It's not an option, I guess. So, where do I go with this? Who's got the knowledge? You have to have the ordinance and then go through all these questions on here.
I would think the township engineer, probably.
Okay.
I would start with him, and maybe West too.
Okay. I will there's a township legal seminar, it's just for information. Curry and Ruppy Law Office, township legal seminar on, should be in Aiken on February 15th. No cost, registration is free, so it's basically anybody who wants to go, but you do need to register for it. So if anybody's interested in that, the questions are, the joy of being the road authority.
That's the whole township.
Now, what townships need to know to comply with the state's new wage theft law? And then another is called Won't You Be My Neighbor? How to work with the county, your neighboring township, etc. Understanding annexation, township jeopardy, that should be interesting. Everything you always wanted to know but were afraid to ask. Conflicts of interest, whose money is it? Yours. And Stump the Chumps, which is answer to any and all legal questions. So,
What is that?
this is Saturday, February 15th in Aiken. And there's a website to register. So, anybody interested in that? Maybe Todd, this is, I don't know if it'd be Todd or Scott, this would be something you could help with. The United States Department of Commerce Census Bureau wants to know what's changed, if we got new houses, that sort of thing, so we can help them out with the census. Is that, and that would be through the permits and all that stuff.
Right. Let me start with that and take a look at it.
Okay.
Do you want?
Yeah. Couple of minor matters. We're paying sales tax to CenturyLink and to East Central Energy. I sent them Form ST3 and we're now exempt. There were two small items that I discovered that had been paid out, disbursements that weren't in CTAS. These are not a big deal. They're fairly obvious. It didn't solve my bigger problem, which is reconciling the accounts, but there was a check to the Mille Lacs County Recorder in July for $46. IUP, interim use permit recording. Obviously legit, it just hadn't gotten put in CTAS. And also a debit, I guess we have a debit card, $55 to the Postal Service, which is a roll of 100 stamps. I checked with Lucinda Messman, the trainer, how to handle this. She said, put it in as a disbursement. There's not a claim associated with it. Put it in as a disbursement and make sure that it's, I bring it up here and that it's in the minutes. So I guess I would think that we should have a motion to accept these disbursements for the purchases that we made.
That was never on the list of,
No, it's not submitted as a claim. It was not entered into CTAS. I discovered these through the bank, going back to outstanding. You know, these were on the bank statement, they were not in CTAS. And so,
and that was what date?
there was July 16th for the Mille Lacs County Recorder and August 28th for the USPS charge. But I put them in the, I entered them as disbursements for her instruction, so they've been paid. But I guess I can leave with you what you want to do with it.
So do we have any idea what those stamps were for? Because that was a day or two before,
I know.
4 days before she was.
I'm not able to determine if the stamps were actually in our possession. I can't, there's no way I can determine that because there's a 2-month gap.
The more concerning thing on that though is the look on your guys' face when you said something about a debit card. You guys all have the blank stare. Do you guys got a debit card floating around somewhere you don't know about?
Very possible.
I was not
I
aware.
would be calling the bank first thing tomorrow
That's
morning.
That's the only charge I've ever seen on it.
Do you know if your accounts were ever reconciled?
No, that's the next point. And this could well be just something that I don't understand. Initially, I was looking at about $94,000, but then there's a third account out there. So let me start at the beginning. We have 3 active accounts with Bremer Bank. We have our regular checking account and we have 2 investment accounts. I had access to the first 2. I didn't have access until to the third one. So I knew it existed, got access to it. So as I've been working through this, what I've discovered, and I don't know if there's anything wrong or if it's just some of the way things are being that I don't understand, but it's a fairly straightforward process. You look at, you add up what's in the 3 accounts, you get a number, and then you look at the report from the accounting system, and they should be the same. But they're not. The bank has more money than our system shows. And I don't know if that's because, well, in one case I do know the interest from one of the accounts is not being added into the system. But I went back and looked through years of interest recordings, receipts in the accounting system, and there was a period from early on, 2002, looked like all the way through 13, where large amounts, seemed to me fairly substantial amounts of interest were being recorded, sometimes month to month, between $100 and some to over $1,000. And I don't know what that particular investment was, but the CD that we have now was purchased in 2018, and we haven't had any interest recorded on that. So when I take that into account, it lowers the amount. But I think it was always considered a $100,000 amount, but the actual amount of the purchase was $102,000 something. So I'm not sure how we're reconciling that, how it's being accounted for. I'm still trying to figure that out. I have a training session at MAT on Thursday specifically on CTAS, and I brought it up with them before, but I'm going to take this information there and see if I can come up with an answer of why I haven't been able to get that to reconcile. It seems fairly straightforward.
Doug, are the accounts, the 3 accounts you're talking about, separated on your balance sheet? Does it say
No.
Bremer checking?
No.
Bremer?
No. that we have, I don't really understand well, let me put it this way, CCAS presents itself as a cash accounting system.
And that's fine.
But it appears like a fund accounting system because it lists the funds. Maybe it's just, I don't have exposure to this, but it seems to me a cash system, you have a transaction register and a running balance.
Yep.
We don't have that. That doesn't exist in CCAS. You have all the funds and what their balances are, and then that all adds up. And as far as I can determine, all three of these accounts are dumped in there together. So that's what I'm trying to work out, and I'm kind of been boggling my brain.
Those are good questions to bring up at the training. That's why they're lumped together, or how they can be separated.
Right, and the other thing to go along with Bill's issue, I need to do, in cooperation with the various board members, I need to review the chart of accounts and make them much more descriptive.
Yep.
Because I don't see the logic of where things go. And it applies to other things. It's a very simple example. FICA. That's split. Half of it is the employee, half of it is the employer. But it goes into CCAS as employer contribution to retirement. Medicare, on the other hand, just goes into Medicare, but both of them should be split that way, to my way of thinking. It may not be that big a deal. That's just one small example of the sorts of things I bump into. And I think it's just, chart of accounts is very complicated, it's complex, and I can see that it could be very intimidating. So it's probably just convenient to say, well, we'll call this gravel or we'll call this road repair.
No.
But we have to do something better than that. And it's going to require a major overhaul of the chart of accounts.
I have a feeling that somewhere you could find a township profit and loss, expense accounts, things like that, a balance sheet accounts that are for townships, because I know that they're different. I don't know how they record assets and things like that, but I would think there would be some availability to find things like that.
What Matt, the Minnesota Association of Townships, is trying to do is get all of the townships to use the chart of accounts. The one that came with CCAS, which is from the auditor, has categories, and then you can break them down underneath. So you have general government, and a whole lot of stuff goes into general government. And it's probably legitimate, but it should be broken down farther under that, or be more easily determined. Because I think you'd want to see how much you're spending on fuel. You'd want to see how much you're spending on truck repair, specific, how much. But there aren't categories for that I've been able to find. I admit I can look right at something and not see it. But I looked through this pretty hard, and I'm not finding those categories in there.
What we saw at the annual meeting was a condensed version. Well, not the sub-accounts, if there are sub-accounts of the main accounts is what we saw.
Yeah. But it's
relating to that 102,000, I believe we had a CD for 100,000. It had accumulated 2,000 interest. We got a letter from Bremer that they were going to roll us over into a zero interest CD.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we negotiated with them to get one that's 1.1 or 2.1 or whatever percent enrolled. They accumulated, that's why it ended up being an odd number.
Right, but I think it's been reconciled month to month as 100,000. But I don't have a specific track on that showing that. And I haven't found any statements from that CD. They only issue it annually, so there would only been one, but and before this year. But I've gone back and downloaded all the statements from all 3 accounts for 2019. So I have those electronically. We also have paper copies of them, but I have them in electronic copies. So that's just an ongoing project that,
Do we have a schedule of assets in there?
I don't believe so. I had to look, there could be a report that reports that out, that I haven't found. So I haven't specifically looked for that, so it would have been just tripping over it.
So you take volunteers to help with other things. I would be willing to volunteer my time to help Doug, to pull documents together, go through reconciliations, maybe help him. This is my background, this is what I've done for
I'd be thrilled for that.
30-some years. I'd be willing to help if I get time off.
We have the MATIT consolidated coverage for the year. We have the invoice in there, we'll be paying that, but this specifies all of our coverages. And that's another matter that should be categorized better. And what is for, not just everything in employee liability, but what goes to trucks, what goes to the building. This is broken down, but we don't have those categories in the accounting system. But that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
We have all seen our claims for approval. Do I have a motion to pay the bills? I move the motion to pay the bills. Motion's been made to pay the bills. And motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion's carried. December 2019 financial report. It's a very quick summary. Our starting balance at December 1st was $682. No. Was that December 1st or is that a month?
December 1st.
December 1st, $682,389. We brought in $180,000. We are expending $99,000. Our ending balance at the end of the year is $764,175.
That is the CTAS balance. The bank balance is about $9,000 more than that.
Okay, so roughly, so you see, and that was one thing the old board was always bragging about, the fact that we had accumulated all this money and now we're actually going to spend some on doing the roads.
Hallelujah.
Any other business to come before the board? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Well, we need to close it for Kenny's.
Oh, yes, sorry.
To clarify, do you need the attorney here to close the meeting? So that way he can give a report afterwards of what was said in closed session?
We have a motion to close the meeting, and we clear the room. We will have our employee review, and then anybody can come back in. We will open the meeting and adjourn.
Doing a fine job.